I tell you one thing. I went down to Birmingham, Alabama several times. Bull Connor was the sheriff. And there were hoses drained out. And after a mass meeting in a black church, I, alongside with the other people who marched, were arrested. And we were put in jail, and there was a white portion of the jail and a black portion of the jail. And we were being roughed up, not just by the jailers, but by the other prisoners as well. And we, all night long, we sang across the courtyard to keep our courage up. And that night, I could only dream of a day when the jails in America would no longer be segregated. I could not dream high enough of a day when two young girls named Malia and Sasha would be living in the White House as of right. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. Theo and I share so much of this history and so many of the same feelings about it. And in 1964, I went down to Mississippi to work on voter registration. This Mississippi summer, they called it. Now, I landed in Jacksonville, and of course, it was the COFO, which was the offices of one of the groups that sponsored Mississippi Summer, was on Lynch Street, which I thought, couldn't they have gotten someplace else? And of course, everywhere you went, you traveled in a black African-American community, because otherwise you'd be targeted. And the young man had disappeared, and everybody was afraid of where they were, what had happened to them. They were afraid that they knew. But I remember driving down, and you didn't, as you traveled from town to town, Realville and Greenville and Jacksonville, and you would be driving. I was with a couple of kids from Chicago, the Newgate Singers they were called, and they were darling. They were young kids, and they had a VW van, terrible thing to be riding around with them in this neighborhood of Mississippi. And the trucks would go by, and you'd look at the trucks, and if the gun rack was empty, you couldn't figure out whether you were happy if it was empty or full. You know, you didn't know. And for a few of those days, I traveled with Fannie Lou Hamer. God bless her. And she would come out. We'd come to a community, black community, and people would be in their houses, doors shut, windows, blinds down. And she'd get out of this van, this funky-looking van, with me and these raggedy kids, teenagers, you know, folk singers. Sorry, not all of them were raggedy. And she'd plant her feet down in the middle of the yard, and she'd say, okay, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Pretty soon people would peek out of the windows and lift up the thing, and they'd slowly come out, and they'd come. They were terrified, of course, to go. So that was my experience. You know, I had to draw on this woman's courage, because she was, you know, she had had a terrible history, terrible things had happened to her. Because she represented in '64, she took the Mississippi Freedom Power.
The Atlantic City.
Yes, she took that platform to the convention. She was amazing. She was amazing.
On that Greenwood, Mississippi, remember that rally? There were altogether 4 white people there. Yeah. 2 of them are sitting right here. right. And you know, Bob Dylan had just begun to make a name for himself, and he got himself a manager, Al Grossman. And I said to Grossman, listen, Dylan keeps writing these socially aware songs, but he really is not experiencing it firsthand. Now, I'm going to go down to Greenwood, Mississippi to sing at a mass rally, and I think Bobby should come. And Grossman said, he can't afford the fare to Mississippi. So I said, look, okay. I gave him a check, and I said, buy him a ticket. Don't tell him where the money came from. Just buy him a ticket. This is the flight I'm on. Put him on that flight, okay? So I'm going down to Mississippi, and Dylan is sitting next to me, and he's writing lyrics on the back of an old envelope. And I said to him, I want to read the lyrics you're going to write on the way back. Those are the lyrics I want to see. Now, that was an eye-opener for him, too, because he had never been at anything like that.